Thank you so much. And this hour 16 gives us another reason for hope. Forests, long considered an expendable resource, have endured centuries of exploitation. Today they are in grave danger and they are in need of help. And yet we need them as well. Forests, after all, inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. As a result, they're a critical life force for the survival of human civilization. But here's the good news, and the 16th of these 24 reasons for hope. Fortunately, after many years of worsening deforestation, we are finally seeing a reversal of that trend in some critical countries. But there is still a great deal to do. Let's look at some of the progress that has been made as we consider the fact that forest capital is being somewhat better protected and deforestation has slowed down somewhat. That is a reason for hope. First of all, I want to start with one of the greatest success stories. And Costa Rica is a wonderful country in so many respects. They took their military budget and basically eliminated that and spent it on free education for everybody. I could go on, but they've done a wonderful job in many, many ways. And here is what happened to the deforestation rate in Costa Rica over the last half century. We saw a dramatic reduction starting at the end of the 1970s. And some of the successful techniques that were used in Costa Rica have been important in producing progress in slowing the rate of deforestation in other countries. In fact, on a global basis, between 2000 and 2010, the pace of global deforestation fell by 19%. This is all good news, but we still have a lot of issues to address. I'm going to single out two countries as we talk about the deforestation problem globally. But these are two very different examples. Brazil, which has the lion's share of the Amazon rainforest, and Indonesia, which has a very unusual kind of forest resource, peat forests. And let's talk about that one first. But before we go to Indonesia and then Brazil, let's do an overview of what the deforestation problem worldwide looks like. In Central Africa, the Congo, Sudan, South Sudan, Nigeria, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, then in Myanmar, in Southeast Asia. This is the second category of countries with an ongoing serious deforestation problem. And then there are these other countries where the problem is not quite as grave as in the aforementioned nations, but still quite a serious issue. But let's look first of all at the main reason that Indonesia, of all countries, you don't think of that as a deforesting nation, or many people don't, but when you look more carefully, here's what you see: palm oil plantations, one of the key drivers of tropical deforestation worldwide. And in Indonesia and parts of Malaysia, there are these peat forests. Peat is actually a kind of fossil fuel. It is the first stage in the development of hard fossil fuels like coal. And these soils are very, very rich in carbon. And when they're burned, they release an enormous amount of greenhouse gas pollution. And that's one of the principal reasons why deforestation and the degradation of forest cover accounts for almost 20% of the global emissions of greenhouse gases. Now to the peat forests. See how rich, deeply black these soils are. That's the carbon. This is a peat forest that is usually soaked in water, a little bit like a swamp. And what's being done here is the draining of the peat forests, and then they are set on fire. Here you see the burned area to the top and the healthy forest on the bottom. Then the trees are cut apart, the logs are sold and shipped off to market. Excuse me, but the real money is made in using that cleared land for palm oil plantations. But here is the good news. Consumer-facing businesses around the world that have an interest in a sustainable supply of palm oil have joined together. My friend Paul Polman, the CEO of Unilever, has really played a hero's role in helping to lead this coalition. Some of the other CEOs have also played an important role, and some businessmen within Indonesia have also shown tremendous courage in pointing the path toward a sustainable approach to the growing of palm oil. This has a real chance of making an enormous difference to the deforestation problem in one of the two worst deforesting countries, Indonesia. And so kudos to these countries that have stepped up to the challenge and are now making a real difference. This is good news. Now let's look at a very different kind of tropical forest, the Amazon rainforest. This picture shows one of the unique aspects of the Amazon rainforest and some other tropical forests. The soil layer is actually very, very thin, and most of the carbon is in the canopy of the rainforest, in the trees and the undergrowth. And when that's gone, then the soils are very poor. They're not really good for farming. Typically, in a lot of these areas that are deforested, the farming operations only are profitable for a few years. And the main driver here is clearing for agriculture, principally clearing for cattle. Animal agriculture and the growing prominence of beef in diets around the world has to be identified as one of the principal causes of deforestation and one of the principal causes of excessive water consumption and a lot of problems that are related to global warming. There are better ways to raise cattle, but diet is part of this issue and cannot be avoided. But in any case, this too is beginning to turn into something of a success story because Brazil has reduced its deforestation quite significantly from the peak year in 2004 to a much lower level last year. Now, I have to quickly add that from 2013 through midway of this year, 2014, the rate has gone back up a little bit, but it has not gone way back up anywhere close to where it was, and there are always going to be yearly fluctuations. So I think it's fair to continue describing this as a success story in the making. Brazilian farmers and ranchers have, in effect, since that peak year of 2004, in reducing the rate of deforestation, saved close to 14 million football fields worth of rainforest from clear cutting. That has to be a reason for hope and has to be counted as a success story. So let's talk about more systematic ways of protecting forests and accelerating this improvement in slowing the rate of deforestation. The REDD program, R-E-D-D, stands for the United Nations Collaborative Program on Reducing Emissions from Deforestation and Forest Degradation in Developing Countries. It is a really important program, and it is an emerging success story with one caveat. The funding that makes this program work that was promised from some of the wealthier countries has not been followed through with as much funding as was expected. But there have been some great successes. In green, you see the National red programs that are already in place, and in blue you see the other partners in the red program. And this too is a reason for hope. But one of the many reasons why it is important to have a success in Paris in December of 2015 is that a global agreement that is now being talked about in the special summit at the UN next Tuesday and will be negotiated between now and December 2015 is also important not only for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from the burning of fossil fuels, but also for reducing global warming pollution from deforestation. Actually, when you stop and think about it, deforestation is a double threat to global warming. Because number one, when the forests are cleared and much of the wood is burned, you have a massive release of global warming pollution into the atmosphere, not only from the burning of the carbon, but also from the release of methane and from the chemical changes in the forest floor that occur after deforestation. But then there is a second threat, because healthy forests absorb CO2 and turn it into standing trees over the long life cycle of trees and forests. So when you have the initial release from deforestation, that's followed by a decrease in the ability of forests to absorb CO2. So this is a particularly important part of the challenge that we face in solving the climate crisis. There are a lot of innovative new technologies for detecting illegal logging. I don't know how widely used this may be, but some people have gone to great lengths to put together recycled cell phones with a lot of solar panels. Typically, they would not put them this low. They put them high in the tree so the loggers don't see them. But this kind of technology, and there are other similar systems that detect illegal logging. Actually, the single most impressive program, I use this slide just to give credit to the World Resources Institute, or WRI, which is an NGO based in Washington, D.C., that has done, in my opinion, the best work in the entire world in developing new tools for detecting deforestation and monitoring reforestation. They can use satellites to go to the individual tree level. But taken as a whole, these trends are exciting, and the slowing rate of deforestation represents the 16th reason for hope.